Perfect. Just to give everyone a timeline, like I said, we do kind of expect this meeting to take roughly 45 minutes to an hour for just the part we're going to tell you all about. And then after, I think we're planning to stick around for about an hour and discuss questions. I don't want to promise more or less time because I don't know what people's availability is, but that's roughly what we're looking at here.
All right, let's get
Website is
started.
live.
Okie
Are you
dokie.
ready,
So,
Naku?
I'm ready. I'm sat. My hair is wet and I'm a little uncomfortable because my shirt is also still wet, but I'm here. I'm in my
Fucking
chair.
do it, girl.
All right, can we go to the next slide? Alrighty, so hello everyone. Welcome to our Big Bad Lore meeting. This is for the second arc, so this is the lore for both season 3 and season 4. We have a ton to get through because we're touching on basically everything at least a little bit. So please put your questions and in like a fucking notepad and save them till the end, just because we will not have time to answer as we go. We will be starting with like the general timeline of events. We're going to go over vampire lore, human war, werewolves, Talum, myths. Those are our 5 races for the season. We're going to go over the in-game factions, review the world map, go over the countries, and then we will leave it off with questions. We will also be doing periodic like kind of like mini like lore meetings to go over certain things in greater depth. Like Duke and I will be doing a vampires / Calderan meeting probably sometime this week to just really dig our teeth into that in more in depth. And then other people are planning on doing similar meetings. So keep your eye out on the announcements and the events page because we're going to be spending a lot of time on lore this season because we're doing a lot. All right, moving on. Tony, I'm going to pass it over to Tony, and he's going to go over a brief overview of the historical, sort of like recent history, as well as our plot hook.
Which we even have a timeline for. So, season 3, which is our current season coming up, is going to start in the year 1273. And to understand how we got here to 1273, we're going to go back about 300 years so you can understand what happened, how we got here, and what's actually going on a little bit. Back then, there was no magic, no monsters, no scary things in the night, or anything really to worry about. People lived and died, and life was normal. Everything was pretty consistent with the world, and nothing much changed. Until 300 years ago. We had the first vampire walk the earth, and with them came the first magic the world's ever seen. What followed after that was, well, centuries of terror. Vampires spread like a plague across the land, stronger and faster and harder to kill than anything humanity had seen before, and the world had no framework for what to do or how to stop them. It took generations of adapting, sacrificing, until finally they founded the Vampire Hunters Guild before humanity could claw its way back to any real measure of safety. It was slow, it was painful, and we got the vampires to retreat behind the walls of Caladran, their island nation, and kind of an uneasy peace settled over the world until Dracula arrived. Dracula was, as everyone knows, a vampire of just unparalleled power. He refused to accept the peace that had been temporarily won, and he kept searching for more than what anyone else had gotten before. He was looking for power that went beyond blood magic, beyond anything. And, well, he found it. What he brought into the world, everyone later called shadow magic, and with it he slaughtered and conquered in a campaign that nobody could stop, up until the Church of Luminance stood up to him. Then, armed with light magic of their own, waged a war that swung the tide back in their favor. The greatest champion of Luminance faced Dracula at a place that we now call Dracula's Demise, and Dracula fell. But, as with any war, the world wasn't any better for it. The world had changed. There's a lot of theories, and none of them have been proven at this point. Some believe the land itself absorbed magical conflict and reached some sort of breaking point, that the world was saturated with power it had never been meant to have, and simply gave way to it. Others think that Dracula never really died, and whatever came of him after is still out there. And the magic bleeding into the world from that is his influence seeping through wherever he went. Some people think the Church of Luminance whispered light magic and putting it out in the world as a gift. I think it may have been a bargain, and at some point it's coming back to collect on its end of the deal. And then there are those who believe that there wasn't ever magic at all. It was always here. Or not. There was never magic that came to the world. It was always there, waiting for someone to discover it. And once it was, war broke out. None of them have been proven or disproven. What is known is that 5 years ago now, magic poured out into the world. People who'd never cast a spell in their lives found power in their hand, and new creatures appeared, kind of without warning. The world geography kind of shifted overnight, and everything stopped making any sense. Recently, however, a scholar within a coalition of researchers known as the Archivum made a pretty important discovery. Whatever caused magic to flood the world, the origin point, was in Vardoran. And word of that had gotten out. People are traveling across the world, drawn by that revelation for whatever reason of their own. Some want to understand what happened, some want to claim whatever piece of it might be left, and some have been sent by other organizations to seek opportunity among everything happening. Some are simply here for a reason they don't know. They just felt called to it. It is into this world that you'll step this season, one where magic has only been truly accessible for about 5 years. What magic is, how it works, is something you're going to discover this season, and it's intended to be driven by you guys and your motivations, reasons, and whatever method you use to explore it. You'll be learning about magic as a core concept for your characters as they dive into specialties with our new specialty system, and to that point, something has called your characters to Vardoran for those of you coming here. For some, it's always been your home. And for others, you're coming to discover something either about your character or about the world. With all of that kind of in mind, we're going to start talking about our races this season, the 5 of them that are coming. We'll give you a brief overview of them, a mechanical snapshot, and we're trying to make it to where they all feel unique instead of our historical approach of vampires with different flavors. It is important to know that we're taking a pretty strict approach to races this season. We will not be allowing hybrids, half breeds, or any whitelisted character that isn't a race mentioned today. So with that, Naku's going to talk about the origin of our first race coming up, which is, as everyone knows, a vampire. And one more stipulation is that I want you to open your minds a bit and think about V Rising in a vacuum instead of in related to other vampire material.
Tony, run mortality contracts quick because
Oh,
they're in everything.
right. So some of you who've been with us for a while know about mortality contracts. For those of you who are new, this word is going to come up a couple of times, and by that I mean on all 5 of our races. A mortality contract is an agreement you make with us as the admin team to limit your character in an enforceable way. You will have a set number of lives, some death or respawn conditions, or it should shape how you play the character and how you look to value its life. And that word is going to be present on all of the races in different ways. All of them have a varying degree of the mortality contract, except for vampires.
All right, I'm gonna talk about vampires. Guys, there are vampires in your vampire game. Isn't that crazy? So we are really tightening the vest on vampires in particular. In the past, we've sort of had a very like laissez-faire direction with vampires where we never really codified like why vampirism functions, how vampirism functions, to give people rooms to be silly little things. Um, and so we wanted to kind of codify how vampires work, why vampires exist, in order to allow us to make some really interesting story choices that are fixed for everybody. So there are two distinct origins to being a vampire. You were either bitten by another vampire, or you fucked around and found out in some degree. Whether that was you were a corpse in the ground that got risen by like innate magical, woo woo. You accidentally turned yourself because you were trying to find immortality. You were trying to turn yourself into a vampire and were successful. You were doing bad alchemy, and whoops, you're a vampire. So those are really like the only. So either you fucked around and found out in some sort of um way, or you were bitten by another vampire and thus became a vampire. So as far as the requirements of vampires go, there's a little list, and I'm gonna knock it out really fast. So all vampires, regardless of if you are risen or bitten, you must be less than 300 years old. You must burn in the sun. You are allergic to garlic and silver. You possess fangs. You drink blood to survive. You have a degree of blood magic, because blood magic is like what is vampirism. So we're all blood magic flavored vampires. You must be formally a human, and you cannot digest food. Your organs do not function. Vampires also cannot spontaneously come into existence. There are no babies born to vampiric parents because they don't have functioning organs. So no born kids. Vampires are only bitten. They're only raised. Also, another important note is that all of the other races that are not humans cannot be turned into a vampire. So if you're Talam, Mit, or a werewolf and you die, you die. That's another aspect of their mortality contracts. Only humans will have the option of turning into a vampire at the end of their mortality contract. Blood bonds are they're also codified and sort of strict. So your blood bond is formed um, when you literally rise from the dead. So your blood bond, it connects all vampires who are of the same direct bloodline to the other vampires within it. There's a really cool chart on the website that I implore you to go look at. I think it gives really good details about how bloodlines are formed, and sort of like what flavor they're taking this season, because we also wanted to codify those and make it so that they're mostly the same for everybody. And then vampiric culture is broad and it is vast depending on where you find yourself in the world. We did want to leave room for people to have like their own little, microcultures of vampirism. But in our current setting, you will find that 90% of the world's vampires live in Caladran, which is the vampiric culture of the world. They are very big in number. They have a very specific culture that I'm not going to get super into right now, but most of like the terms and most of like what is culturally expected of a vampire is directly informed by collegiate culture. Like I said earlier, Duke and I will be doing another like lore meeting that's dedicated to vampirism, vampire culture, and all that stuff. But the most important things for you to know, just off the cuff, is that the first vampire is referred to as the progenitor. Vampires that are in Caladran largely refer to him as like a god. He turned 5 people, who are known as the 5 descendants, and they in turn turned more people. So you as a player cannot be closer to the progenitor than 4th generation for many reasons. So if you want to be a vampire, you were either risen, so you fucked around, found out things happened, or if you were of the bitten vampire variety, which is most of them, and everybody else of these, super large generations of vampires that double over themselves every time there's a new bite, basically number wise, you're at least 4th generations removed from the progenitor. The progenitor being the 1st generation, the 5 descendants being the 2nd, 3rd generation being Inner Palace people in Calderon, and 4th generation being something that you can play. Vampires do not have a mortality contract. You do get bat form, I think right off the jump. Bat go ver, vroom vroom, etc., etc. And that's really all I got to say about vampires for now. I'm gonna pass it over to Tony, who's going to talk about humans.
Yes, the beloved humans sometimes. Humans are going through a couple of changes this season. A lot of it'll be the same that you're used to. You'll have limited lives, you need to have natural features, you'll go through blood quest progressions. The difference is going to be they will have a small plot tied to them this season. Every human will be starting with corrupted blood as your secondary, and your purpose, or part of your purpose, coming to or being part of Vardoran, is to find out how to remove it or cure it. I'm not going to elaborate more than that. It is going to be pretty freeform. as a plot line, and you'll find out more through the season. It is curable and intended to be cured by players, so that is as much as I'll give for now. Humans will not need a permanent ticket this season, and all of you will be starting at some variation of 30% blood, so we could streamline it a little bit. You will journal your journey this season, and when you are ready to upgrade your blood, you'll just pop open a ticket with me and be like, hey, here's what I did. Here's the journal link. Give me blood. We have changed what blood you can be as a human. There will be no mutants, corrupted, or Draculan blooded humans. And you are no longer locked to 2 schools of magic. You can unlock more magic with sufficient journaling RP.
In particular, to talk on that, you can still only have 2 schools of magic at a given time, but you can swap them. So if you start your human with Storm, and then you go through some RP to change that to Illusion, you can do that.
Merrick. So, on top of that, we've also extended the critical injury timer, because if you happen to take your final wound at a time when nobody was online, your character would get permanent, and that didn't feel great. So you'll now have up to 3 IRL days to receive healing or treatment for your human's critical wound. You must receive that RP healing from someone in the doctor specialization to heal. And then as for why certain factions are specific, humans are just hostile to people who are not in their faction this season. If you decided you were a Dunley faction person, Dunley will not be hostile to you, but the other humans of the world will. If you're part of Silverlight's faction, they won't be hostile to you, but the rest of the world will. And that is pretty much the significant changes to humans this season, as well as a brief overview. And we have also updated the website to match that. So there's a large section on humans, what they are, what the limitations. As we mentioned earlier, they have the strictest mortality contract. You get 3 critical injuries throughout the season. You must get med RP if you're critically injured from a doctor. And then if you reach your 3rd critical injury and die, you can either choose to turn into a vampire at that point, or perma your character, and then you also have the option to turn into a werewolf this season prior to your 3rd death.
There is one other thing to note about humans and vampires. Some of you may have noticed specifically right here. Humans and vampires are the only 2 races that can utilize unholy magic or necromancy, however you want to call it. So do keep that in mind as well.
That is important for the following races. But that is it for humans, and we'll get on to werewolves this season. For those who played werewolves last season, you're no longer being hunted by a strange, shadowy figure. However, there are a couple of changes here as well. Just like vampires, you must be bitten to become a werewolf this season, which has a couple of different things. You can either die, become a werewolf, or just it doesn't take. Those are the 3 outcomes. They all have an equal chance of happening. It's up to you. You cannot, if you've become a werewolf as a human, you cannot transform until you've experienced your first blood moon after your 3 days of sickness. For some of the lore here, though, roughly 5 years ago, when all that magic became more widely available, werewolves also emerged. You spread around the world, kind of living in small, isolated communities, fearing being discovered by the same vampire hunters guild. You are still mortal, you are tougher than an average human, but you have a limited number of lives. You can shapeshift into both a werewolf form as well as your enhanced wolf form, which has the same movement speed as a horse. So you have that going for you. You won't have blood drain. You will be locked to one of your blood types being 100% creature, which is your starting point if you whitelist as a werewolf. You do not need a medical RP to survive your critical injuries. However, there is a recovery time. So you cannot be cured this season either. There's no cured of werewolfism or lycanthropy, however you want to call it. At least in season 3, you can search for a cure in over the course of both seasons, but at least this season there is no cure, and you will not be able to go from werewolf to any other race. And I think that is most of what I want to cover about werewolves. Some of the rest I'll let y'all discover through either playing them or by reading them on the website. And I think Naz is going to speak to y'all on our next new race.
Yes, the Talam. Talam are a completely new race built from the ground up by Potts and I. We've been working quite a while on this. It's a new species that were once human, changed when the surge and flood of magic hit the world approximately 5 years ago. They cannot be further created. They can be born, however, between Talam. It affected people of all range of ages, from young kid to a cranky old man living alone in the woods. They all share a very common root, though, which is that they all had some type of connection to nature, whether that was spiritual, religious, maybe they were just very isolated, they, believed in tending to groves or maintaining balance, all kinds of things. One of the things is that each of the subspecies, the Talagria, the Talafesca, and the Talagela, they were all formed under the sky. They were all formed differently based on the sky they were under when the magic hit. So those born under the sun became Talagria, those born under the moon became Talafesca, and those born under twilight, sunset, sunrise became the Talagela. They all have subtle differences to them that I won't go into crazy detail here because it's a lot. It's all on the website for you all to view. But important mechanical things is that they are intrinsically connected to nature. They have very strong ties to that. They are also going to be following a mortality contract, kind of halfway between humans and werewolves. There will be a little bit more similar to the mechanics of werewolves, how they don't necessarily need a doctor to take care of them, but it will help them speed up their recovery after they have to reconstitute. They will have 6 high-risk bag drops before they die permanently. It's important to note, when a Talam dies, that's it. You don't get to be a human and turn to Talam. You don't get to be a Talam and turn into vampire or anything else. You get 6 lives. That's it. Mechanically, they also don't have blood drain. They will be starting at 100% of the chosen blood quality, following the same blood restrictions as humans are. You might hear my cat here a little bit. They will be restricted to not be able to use the blood or unholy magic schools ever, and they start locked to Frost and Storm, but you can expend a specialty in order to expand into the other schools, including, Illusion, Chaos, Druidic, Elemental, etc. Each of the subspecies are also going to have 2 to 3 special shapeshifts just locked to them. They are the only ones who will be able to have these little shapeshifts, and they'll be very unique to the flavor of the subspecies they are. For the most part, they also have the ability to actually change their blood type through an extensive ritual that will be explained later. It will be a mechanical thing. Beyond that, Potts and I will actually be hosting a more in-depth back-to-back meeting tomorrow. I'll have it put on the actual event calendar here in the Discord. That way we can catch any of the EU folks who have questions and any of the people who are like PST who want to view those kinds of things later in the day. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Hit us,
sweet.
Fleur.
All right, mitts. Mitts. Ah, that's pretty cool. I like how these guys turns out. So mitts are the other custom race that we have been adding. I'm sure there will be many memes about their name, but it's a cool looking word, okay? Mitts. Mitts are interesting entities. They showed up in the world roughly 5 years ago, similar to all the other various like werewolves and Talam, etc. Mitts don't belong here though. They don't really belong in the world in a way that is difficult for them to explain. We have a blurb about some of their history that you can read on the website. They existed much longer before magic showed up in the world. They were somewhere else in a state of existence that doesn't really translate into a way you can describe. But you were here now. you have a body now, a humanoid. You're bound by weight and temperature and this strange limitation of matter. It's not unpleasant. It's new. It's not what you're used to. Mitts are a mechanically interesting species. They're composed of 3 magical schools. And when you whitelist, you're able to select the magical schools that you are composed of. You pick from 3 pairs. So you can pick Storm or Frost, Chaos or Illusion, and Light or Shadow. The 3 magical schools that you pick determine the magical schools you can use. And they also determine and have blood types associated with them. Mitts will have custom commands. They will have blood drain, but they will be able to switch between the type of blood that they have at any given moment. Mitts won't be drinking like normal people. Mitts won't be able to recover their blood pool. They'll have blood drain just like a vampire, but you won't get your blood pool back from drinking mobs or potions or V-bloods. In fact, Mitts are powered by magic. Their bodies, in a similar fashion to vampires, aren't entirely fully active. They have organs and pieces that just aren't functioning. They run off magical power. And so instead of drinking life force to replenish themselves, Mitts will have a command to consume a material out of their inventory. And based on the magical schools you are composed of, you will eat different materials. For example, a frost-based Mitt will eat sapphires. Or they could, if they also have illusion mixed in, they could eat mist stones. Or if they are composed of light magic, they eat quartz. In addition, the 3 schools you select will also give you access to a set of custom shapeshifts. Those of you that might be aware, this is tech we will be rolling out, where you can turn into a mob. For example, if you are a Mitt that is composed of chaos magic, one of your shapeshifts that you have access to is a chaos crow. But in exchange, Mitts can't shapeshift into any normal creature otherwise. No wolf, no bear, no spider, no any normal creature. The only things Mitts can shapeshift into are the 3 magically school-aligned forms based on what they're composed of. Otherwise, they have a few other little bits and pieces that you can read on the website. They will have a permanent 0% silver resistance. Silver is extremely effective against them. They are immune to sunlight, immune to garlic, which means that they can successfully pass as humans. Mitt culture is very much a culture of integration. Mitts have no centralized culture, they have no centralized nation. They have popped into this world and are trying to learn how to live here over the last 5 years. Because their bodies are distinctly humanoid, they can pass as humans successfully and tend to find themselves integrating into the middle of other communities, sometimes completely unknown that they're not actually human. All of this information can be read on the website, and if you have any questions, feel free to write them down now and then ask them at the end of our presentation.
We will also be doing a Mitt Q&A at some point.
Yes.
Lots of Q&As coming up.
Yes, we'll get into that later.
With that, I think it's
Blair, keep talking.
Oh, that's right. I'm doing
Organizations.
organizations next. This is another section we have on the site. We have 8 entries for the 8 organizations that are going to be primarily phys-repped in Vardoran. Each one has some history behind it on why they are here. Luminance, in particular, is your stereotypical luminance. The information we have on the site is focused around the militarized, proper, quote-unquote, Church of Luminance. They've been all over the place, primarily coming from a nation down in to the south by the name of Novosvet, I think is the way you pronounce it. They have Brighthaven as an established city. Their reach extends beyond Vardoran. In fact, Vardoran is only one small slice. They're still here in Vardoran in order to keep a foothold here for reasons that are unknown for all intents and purposes. The Archivum, as mentioned beforehand, is the only joinable faction out of the ones listed, and I will go into detail on that once I finish going through these. These are where our NPCs will be. This is where the admin plotline will be centered. They are a coalition of scholars, researchers, and practitioners drawn together across the world to unify under a single principle. They don't care what race you are. They don't care what your backstory are. They encourage and accept anyone who wants to understand what the fuck happened. Why is there now magic? Why do we now live in this world that we live in? If you find yourself wanting to play scholarly character or wanting to do science or learn about the world lore, this is a potential hook for you. The Transcendum comes from a nation to the north by the name of Norris. And the Transcendum in particular is not the whole nation. In fact, the Transcendum is a company, one aspect of the greater nation to the north. And Black Brew made a name for himself in the war against Dracula through his various biological mutations and means of enhancing the strength of soldiers. But when Luminance took the stage, Black Brew was shunned, which is very similar to what lore you may see in game. A big note here is that the in-game lore says Black Brew is 800 years old. That is not the case. Black Brew is not 800 years old. Transcendum, in fact, only arrived in Vardoran roughly 4 to 5 years ago and have taken up, have settled themselves up in Gloomrot because they're not regulated here. They're a research company led by Black Brew, and the regulations and the stipulations of operating in Norris were constraining for Black Brew's goals. So he moved out, and now we're doing illegal science in Vardoran. Noctum, on the other hand, has been here for some time. Mortium was the seat of Dracula's power during his war and during his rise to power, and Noctum were his soldiers. But upon Dracula's defeat, Noctum has stayed in Vardoran. And rumors have spread across the region that over the last couple years they have been performing a multitude of rituals to try and bolster their forces, apparently under the desire to revive Dracula once more. Whether or not this is a foolish endeavor or something they can actually achieve is functionally unknown, as the cult is very secretive. They don't want to tell outsiders. Get the fuck out of Mortium territory. This is our business. We're doing our shit. Go away. Next up, we have the Vampire Hunters Guild. Mentioned briefly, the Vampire Hunters Guild is a very old organization. It was humanity's response to the spread of vampirism over the 300-year period where they were a problem. The vampire hunters are extremely well trained, very powerful individuals wielding all different kinds of esoteric equipment that has been invented and conceived during humanity's adaptation to the vampire threat. The Vampire Hunters Guild is notable in particular. This is not a proper joinable organization, and we will be using the Vampire Hunters Guild as enforcers in a way. If you find yourself playing a murder hobo-esque character, or a character that is doing a whole lot of conflict and committing a whole lot of war crimes, you can expect word of your deeds to reach the Vampire Hunters Guild, and if they think you're a monster, that's what they kill. So you can expect, if you decide to play that kind of a character, that there will be an end to your character's story. And it might very well happen through the Vampire Hunters Guild. The Farbane Bandits are hunters, scavengers. The Farbane Woods are a fucking mess, bro. Oh my god. The forest was already dangerous, and then magic entered the scene, and it has become even more dangerous. Ruined towns, graveyards of the dead that no longer stay dead, etc., have turned the Farbane Forest into an extremely dangerous place. And for the most part, the bandits have just been around until a couple individuals have obtained magical power. And for the first time in quite some time, the bandits have started organizing. Now, bandit factions are led by individuals who have mastered their various magical skills, and the resemblance of organization has allowed them to start reconstructing some of the fortresses that long were dead and gone and abandoned. Um, whether or not they succeed or torn apart again with the change of time, who knows? The Dunley Militia are your protectors of Dunley. Vardoran is a very ancient land with a very deep history to it. Over 1,000 years of communities have come and gone, and there is this historical heritage for the people that have always generally called Vardoran their home. And while Vardoran has never really fully evolved into a location with proper government, it definitely has its own community, and that is what Dunley is. The Dunley Militia is the current form of protection for that community. There's always been some form of a militia in Dunley that have strived to keep the inhabitants of Vardoran safe, and the current rendition of that is simply another iteration of the people who call Vardoran home, truly. And then we have the Venom Blades. The Venom Blades, contrary to normal standardized lore that you may see in the game or in blog posts about them, are not raiders. They did not come from another land. They did not build boats and then sail here in order to raid and pillage. No, in our lore, the Venom Blades weren't really around much. They were a cult of sorts, following a witch that had become popularly known as Megara. Whether or not she had real power or not, or if it was all fake and some fancy shenanigans, no one really knows. But what people do know is that when magic entered the scene 5 years ago, they were in Oakvale doing their shenanigans, various forms of guerrilla warfare in order to keep other factions out, and something changed. Whispers of monstrosity slithering through the forest, odd corrupting rituals turning the trees a sickly purple, and some type of material by the name of venom sap spreading across the area are all things that have leaked from Oakvale. The Church of Luminance maintains military action to try and clear them out, but has been thoroughly unsuccessful. Otherwise, that's our organizations. All this information with more detail than I provided can be found on the website in the organizations section.
Welcome to the world map.
Hey guys, it's the map.
It is a
We
map
got the map. Something
of the
something.
world.
It's a map.
There is in the announcements channel, there is an 8K rendering of this map that you are welcome to download. It is much higher resolution than what will be available on the website for obvious reasons. But Naku is going to yap to you about all of our fun little nations.
Yeah, let
that you
me
can be
give me
from.
2 seconds. I'm gonna pull up that picture and then I'm gonna go in kind of relative order rather than alphabetical, because so I'm not zooming everywhere every which way.
Oh,
across.
I have it alphabetized for you already, Naku on slides.
Thanks.
One thing to note before Naku gets into this, you will notice that there is a lot of empty space. We did that for a reason. I will not be adding your own little homebrew settlements and mini countries to the world map, but there is space for you to be from somewhere that is not one of these countries. This map is also an in-character tool. This is the official world map made and brought to you by the Archivum. So if you want to be from the Blathian Salt Flats, you can be. I'm not putting your countries on there because there's just going to be too many. So with that said, Naku, tell them about everything.
Party. As long as I exist, Frankelberg will exist. I'm just gonna give you a quick, snappy, like 2-3 sentence summary of every nation, and map crew and I, the people, the folks that did countries, myself included, will have a dedicated lore sit down where you can ask questions to your heart's little desires about all the different countries, because we have a lot this season. So starting off with Etheria. Etheria is the land of the Talam. It is a series of 3 very, very large mountains and 7 smaller ones that just appeared in the middle of the fucking ocean 5 years ago. Directly in between Lakra and Welron's main trade route. Like, they just were sailing one day and then there were mountains there. And the Talam are like, clearly these mountains that came out of nowhere are for us. It's a relatively young nation with a heavy importance placed on spirituality and respect for one's elders. Ahania is a mountain nation where most of the world's silver comes from. It is free of myths, Talam, vampires, and werewolves due to the heavy presence of silver. These mountains are quite literally made of silver. If you are not human and you go there, you're gonna feel real sick. Magic is not practiced within Ahania. Alinar is a prosperous land with fresh ideas and differing ideology, generally open to many races. However, due to Caladran's nearby threat, they are very wary of vampires because they're neighbors with Caladran who like to, eat their humans. And then we have Frankelberg, the land of 1,000 queens, that is a vast multicultural space where the people of all kinds are accepted, even vampires in a few queendoms. But because they too are very close neighbors with Caladran, they also, for the most part, hate vampires. Because Caladran do be raiding them for the last 300 years. But they are very neutral to everybody else. And then moving on, we've got Hafshelheim, which is the land of nomads, once known as the Ash Folk. They are incredibly introspective people who live on the land. There's some volcanoes nearby that they do cool oracle stuff with. Very, we're cool, we like snow, we live in mountains. We have Lakra. Lakra is an island chain that is home to many brigands and pirates of the world. They are kind of anarchy rules, don't have a super strict formal government. They like to sail, they like to raid your shores, and steal your boats. And then we have Norris. Norris was originally a feudal kingdom. However, after a plague wrecked the country, they turned into an engineering and industrialization in conjunction with their luminance worship. So they're very luminance heavy. They're directly north of Vardoran, and they are the origin of the Transcendum Company. So Norris is the technology boyo. Nova Franca is a small and mysterious island nation that was once a colony of Frankelberg. It has a very dense forest that is filled with fog that makes you confused and sick. And because the people there work really hard to keep the fog and the trees that are very scary and full of very scary things out of their town, they have a very their culture centered around lumberjacks. They are now their own independent nation.
And maple syrup.
They do like maple syrup, it's true. So Novosvet is a frost-filled tundra nation ruled by the Church of Luminance to the point that they are culturally identical. Novosvet is one of the largest kingdoms in the world. They are the Church of Luminance country. The church is the government. So as such, it's very, very hostile to vampires. They do a lot of trade with other nations for things like silver and garlic and all that stuff. They are very focused on killing you because you're not a human. There is the Omen Plateau, which is not a single nation, but it is a large region that is a mountainous desert of sand and stars where little more than thorns grow and none can survive alone. There are tribes that live there. You're welcome to be from the Omen Plateau, obviously. But yes, Omen Plateau region. It's spooky. Piscis Vol is one of the oldest nations in the world. It is a collection of islands united under the worship of the Great Fish, which is one of the religions. They worship the fish. They are seafarers, sailors. They build boats. They have very, very fast boats. They do pirate things with Lakra, but they don't, as a nation, don't believe in piracy. They're just commandeering your vessel. It's not piracy. It's not the same. Caladran is home to the majority of vampires in the world, an estimated 85 to 90% of all vampires. It is a walled-off island nation that is home to the largest vampiric castle in the world. The Progenitor's Castle and the Castle of the Five Descendants is basically one giant castle heart that fills up the entire nation. The nation itself is under the constant layer of mist braziers, and the island itself is surrounded by a giant undead enthralled sea serpent that eats any boats that get near. Moving on, there is Saloon. Saloon is a desert wasteland with a complex and storied history full of light worshipping, but not luminance faithful. They worship the sun and the moon as a dual religion and live in a cursed land where if you bring in dirt from the outside, that dirt will turn into sand if you let it touch the ground. So yeah, it's a complicated place to be. The Hollowed Mountains is a land of ancient monasteries and small valley communities separated geographically from most of the world. They're very isolated. They live up high in the sky and they've got opinions about it. And then last but certainly not least is Welrons, which is born from the ruins of the Empire of Nostera, which collapsed at the beginning of the era. Welrons is a human-first country that produces a lot of beef and wheat. They are staunchly anti-magic, so much to the point that even the idea of divinity itself is considered magic and therefore shunned. I will note here that we have a concrete timeline this time around, and most of the countries use the same calendar, which is marked as after the fall of Nostera, which was an empire that no longer exists that used to cover the entirety of the Western continent. The vampires in Caladran have their own calendar because they hate you. Weast. No, Welrons is beautiful. Vlur is a hater. And that's pretty much
Naku,
it
do you
for
want to
countries.
talk about Vardoran at all?
I will touch on Vardoran. So Vardoran in this arc is going to be sort of unique from a departure from what we've done in the past because it is not so much a unified nation, so much as it is a place where people have always lived. They were once a very, very, very long time ago, over 1,000 years ago, a colony of Nostera, and then when that empire fell apart, they were just kind of vibing on the other continent. So, organizations like the militia have always been there. Luminance is new to the area because yes, one of their closest neighbor is Novaset and the other one is Norris, both of which are very luminant dominant countries. So luminance as a faith has always been in an area, but Brighthaven itself is a very recent settlement because it really cropped up around the time of luminance being like, okay, this Dracula guy, he keeps trying to kill us, let's go kill him. Because we have light magic now. So Vardoran it's a small community. That's sort of the in-character reason why the militia will try to kick your shit in, even if you're a human. They don't know you, so they're just gonna kind of assume that you're evil because they've been at war for the last couple of years and they're leery of strangers. Because Vardoran is it's just a little place. It's not really like a big country. It's not considered a big world power. People are paying attention to it right now on the the international scale rather, because this is where Dracula was. This is where scholars believe this outpouring of magic came from. How people refer to the outpouring of magic will also vary based on what organization they belong to or what country they're from. Luminant majority countries consider it to be like a cataclysm. It's like the end of the world, where others are just like, this is the Talam, or like, this is the wellspring of magic. It's it's time. So people have very different opinions about the event 5 years ago that caused magic to explode into the world. So Vardoran is sort of on the world stage. It's known as a place and an entity right now because of Dracula's doing. But if we had looked at the world map pre-Dracula, most maps would have either made it as part of the Hollowed Mountains, made it as part of Norris, or not included it on their map at all.
Blur,
If
hit
this
us
is
up with the
harder,
big
guy.
RP changes, please.
Okay. So this part of the presentation, we want to highlight a couple significant changes that will impact your RP that is different from prior seasons. The first one is very straightforward. Possession RP is now flat a banned topic. Hard, straight up. No possession RP in any form whatsoever. You notice that our races have also been tweaked to reflect this. Gone is the days where you are an entity puppeting a body, or some other entity is puppeting your body. Okay, that is a hard gone. The second thing of note is that I want to make it very, very clear. And Naku talked about this. I think even Duke might have mentioned this. We really want to drill it in that our vampiric lore is now unified. It's codified more. We have this server's version of vampirism, and it's important that you guys stick to that. In the past, we've been a lot more fluid, but the downsides of being more fluid is that everyone turns into their own color of vampire, and then if we have someone who wants to do vampirism research, they can't, because we can't make it affect everyone, because everyone's different. So this will not only allow us to tell more interesting stories, but it will open the doors to vampirism research. You guys are not given all of the details on how vampirism works. There is science and research and exploration that you can do, and probably not the first season. Frankly, we're not expecting you guys to reach the point where you could do it during season 3, but probably season 4, a vampiric cure or a method of curing one's vampirism is on the table. If you go through the science and you learn the ins and outs of vampirism, it is on the table. The next thing I want to touch is same concept, but for magical schools. In the past, magical schools have been kind of wishy-washy. People can pretty much do whatever they want with them kind of vibes. We have codified them more. You can find the information on how we have codified the magical schools down in the specialties section of the website. We've had prior community meetings about the specialty section, so I won't go into in-depth describing the whole thing. It's all there. The important note I really want to drill here is that each school has a theme. It has a category. It has a room that it lives in. Each school is going to be very good at specific things, and each one is going to be unable to do other things. And while this isn't a disciplinary concept that we're going to be really enforcing, this is a social contract. We want people to really stick to their concepts. If you are an extremely powerful blood mage, deleting curses isn't really in your wheelhouse. And being okay with saying that's not in my wheelhouse not only lets you carve out a niche for yourself because no one else is trying to step on your toes, but it means that other people can carve out their niches. You can have the chaos mage, and that's the person in the region who's the most advanced in that, etc., etc. This also opens the door to combinations, which again, I really, really want to sell this hard. Your ability to collaborate, and now that we know what storm magic is, and we know what unholy magic is, you can combine those to make some really cool effects. Whether or not you do it yourself because you have specialty in both, or you work with others and you do collaborative rituals in order to invent and use the Lego bricks that are the magical schools to make your cool Lego set of a ritual, right? Same vibes across everything that is a specialty. So we want to make it very clear. Go read about them. Get a vibe for what they are. We'll have plenty of Q&As to kind of tackle and update stuff as needed. The fourth major thing I want to cover is doctoring. We briefly mentioned this with humans. It's talked about in the human contact on the website, and it's talked about in the doctor specialty. Medical RP requires the doctoring specialty. Okay? You can go pick someone off their knees. That's not doctoring. You can hand someone a health potion so they can treat their wounds. That's not doctoring. Doctoring and proper medical RP to treat severe wounds, chronic illnesses, interacting with the mortality contract to resolve critical injuries, etc., require the doctoring specialty. This also means doctoring does not require blood magic. You can be a doctor who uses illusion magic, and you can use that combination to theme how you do your doctoring. A doctor who goes about treating a wound who uses light magic is going to do something entirely different than a doctor who attempts to treat it with unholy magic, right? And the vibe here is that for those of you who are going to do your doctoring RP, or those of you who are going to, come up with RP for your injuries for other doctors to solve, keep in mind that each doctor is going to approach the problem differently and be flexible with how they go about doing it. Because no longer is the concept of healing tethered to blood magic explicitly. For those of you who do doctors, I highly encourage brainstorming how you can utilize items and magical materials to help with your doctoring. And then the last pit. And this line, ley lines no longer exist, ties into a greater thing that I want to end on here. Is this our last slide, by the way? Are we going to QA after this?
No, we have important dates
Okay, gotcha.
to keep in mind, like Q&A.
Okay. So this last piece that I really wanna lean into, right? Ley lines do not exist because we have completely overhauled the world lore. The content that we have presented with you today, the content on the website, isn't even half of what we have written. All of the decisions you have seen, from werewolves only, doing storm and, frost stuff, to what magical schools the Talam have access to why the myths are composed in the way they are. These are not just spontaneous things floating around. You may see them as little floating details. They all have anchor points. All of them. We have an entire background world built in preparation for your fuckery. Okay? For the shenanigans you guys are going to do. There are countless mysteries and questions and things to uncover. And there are logical reasons for why we have set things up the way we have. So as you step into the season, recognize that a lot of the stuff that you see publicly have background reasons we want you to find out in character, which is very much the vibe of the season.
Absolutely. And to kind of bounce off of what Vlair said, first off, find out in character is the theme of this season. We often say it as a joke, but we built this whole big ass crazy world for you guys. There's a ton of info out there. There's a ton that's yet to be discovered, and we want you guys to find it. We want you guys to do your journals and do research and do rituals and everything, as opposed to past seasons where there's been kind of a bottleneck with that stuff. So, with that, we have a couple important dates and notes for you guys. The first one, we are having various Q&As. You've already heard about Naku and I doing one on Wednesday for Vampires and Caladran. Potts and Nasder are doing one, I believe, tomorrow
Yes.
for the Talam, and probably Aetheria as well, since it's so close.
Yes.
So the people who wrote the various different lores will be doing Q&As if they see enough questions or feel the need to answer that stuff. On the 18th, whitelists will open. We want to give you guys about 2.5 weeks to digest everything, read through stuff, get your questions answered, so that when you do make your character, you know it's the character you want to play. We don't want to have any issues of people jumping in, realizing this isn't what I wanted, and then they're killing off a character to make a new one. 8/1, August 1st, is season launch. And that is when you guys will finally get to return to Shadows of Vardoran in-game. Tony will be hosting weekly Q&As every Friday as well, not with any set theme, just a general Q&A you guys are welcome to hop into. Any of the Q&As that come up, we will post in the calendar and we will add all of you guys. With that being said, the time has come for everyone's favorite part. Questions.
Oh, here we go.
Before we get to questions, I do just want
Yes.
to say I wanted to bring it up before we got to the important dates, but just as a heads up, this season the plot line that we are doing on admin side is going to be spanning both seasons. It's not just season 3 plot and then an isolated season 4 plot. We are doing a plot that will go from this season into next season. So the time skip between the two seasons will be really much shorter than you all are used to, and it will be a more continual story.
I will say
Just
there will still be a server wipe between seasons. So expect to have an in-character reason to depart Vardoran or otherwise be kicked out or something at the end of season 3. Do not expect to have the same builds from season 3 to season 4. There will be a time skip and we will be wiping the server between.
Indeed, but
But
the
yeah,
time skip will be short enough so that humans can survive it.
Humans can make
Yes.
it.
I will take the first question because
Yes.
there were some specific high risk bag recovery options, but no, there will no longer be high risk recovery options for at least humans and werewolves. I can't speak to the other races.
Talam will be following the same rules as werewolves.
As far as V-Bloods being addressed as a lore concept, the concept of there being a V-Blood will be addressed, kind of. However, unlike last season, the unlocks for the V-Bloods will not necessarily all be tied directly into a story locked behind admin stories, things like that. We may still use some of the unlocks to further our story, because some of them are very good for the story we want to tell. But it's not going to be, oh, this is a Noctum event or this is a cult event, so on and so forth.
Suffice to say that why V-Bloods exist, yes, we have a background, go find out reason for why the V-Bloods exist.
Will the Vampire Hunter Guild target people who are flagrant about murdering NPCs, slaughtering Brighthaven, that sort of thing? Murdering NPCs, very potentially. Because we've announced that most of our NPCs will be part of the Archivum or Archivum, it is very possible that the Archivum would hire the Vampire Hunter Guild to come murk you. Whether or not the Vampire Hunter Guild wins or not, totally different thing. But the main purpose of it is if you're going around murder hoboing, doing very, very bad things, we have an in-character way to bring consequences to players who do that. Now, if it's not causing an issue and, let's say I have a pre-standing agreement going to the season with Vlur and Tony and Nazster that the four of us are just going to continually murder each other throughout the whole season, maybe the guild doesn't do anything. Who knows?
I will note that
Go ahead.
I will note. Go for it, Tony.
No, you're answering this question. Go ahead. I was gonna offer.
I will note. Oh, gotcha. Yeah. So, and I will tack on because you mentioned like slaughtering Brighthaven, that sort of thing. For example, we don't want to like use the Vampire Hunter Guild as a bludgeon to beat you over the head if you're playing the video game, right? That's not the goal here. If you, for example, go and start murdering the Dunley population on a regular basis and you are advertising that as RP, you can absolutely expect your decision to advertise that as RP to be picked up by the vampire hunters who are essentially hired as protective forces at the moment in Vardoran. So, if you want to die to a vampire hunter, hey, let us know. We'll come murder your character. Like, power to you.
I love murdering characters. Just ask Ruby.
Right. So, can we expect faster turnabout times for RPO tickets now that all the information is written down and no longer bottlenecked to a specific admin? The short answer is that was kind of the point. However, I also want to encourage people who feel that their ticket is taking too long. Last season, I advised people to ping someone new or their current admin on their ticket once every 48 hours. I still find that to be the case, and if an admin is not answering you who started handling your ticket, ping someone else who is shown on the sidebar in the ticket. It's not gonna upset anybody. Sometimes we take breaks. I took like a month off last season to play WoW. It happens. We're volunteers, but just ping someone else. And if they can't handle it, they'll ask the whole team and see if someone else can hop in there. But the
That's one of the
goal
nice
is to
things.
not have week-long ticket replies where possible.
Also-
Next, go ahead, Fanny.
I was gonna say, and also we're going to try and avoid having tickets just kind of sit there forever. Ongoing research tickets were a problem.
We're still expecting the change that we made of ongoing research to be primarily logged in journals. You come to us and you say, hey, this is the experiment, I did what happened. And then we tell you what happened. And then you close it out and you log it in your journal. We really, really do not want any long-term research tickets this season. It should all be journal research.
Vlur, these next two questions are things you can answer. First one, can doctors do med RP on themselves? And second, can vampires do holy magic?
Number 2 is a no.
Yes. We are allowing doctors to do medical RP on themselves. That is absolutely viable. It would feel bad if you couldn't. There's probably some people squinting at like, well, what if I want to do surgery on myself? How is that supposed to work? For the sake of quality of life purposes, we're allowing doctors to treat themselves. If you are a human doctor, you can handle your own critical injuries. As far as can vampires do holy magic? Surprisingly, Tony, the answer is yes.
Crazy.
It is possible, for lore reasons you guys don't know, for a vampire to learn how to do holy magic. Now, it might be more
We should
difficult considering the
asterisk it.
Church of... Yeah.
You can't
It's
start with
light.
holy magic.
It's light magic, not
Yeah.
holy
It is
magic.
light magic, yeah.
And it's not
we're
something you
doing a
can
couple things.
start
Don't believe
with.
the Luminance propaganda.
You have
Yeah.
They're
to
not
you have
special.
to figure out how to do the how over the course of the season. That's not
Mhm.
something you can start with as a vampire.
Yeah, and you
Mhm.
have to recognize that the people who have controlled light magic the whole time it's been here has been the Church of Luminance, and they hate vampires. So you cannot be a citizen of Brighthaven as a vampire, for example. So it is very difficult to explain why a vampire would have holy magic on season start, and probably more difficult for them to really learn how to use it. But it is possible. It is not blocked by lore.
So the answer is not holy magic, but light magic.
Yes, light magic in particular.
Absolutely. Emily has a couple questions. Setting wise, what kind of magic tier is the world at? High, mid, low, etc. Not just what is known. Because magic is burgeoning in the world, it is not been widely studied aside from blood magic by vampires. Magic is growing. That's kind of the best way that we can answer that.
I can say the vibe of the season is the ceiling is high, your starting point is low. So you're not going to be able to come in and do crazy rituals because you don't know how to do rituals, right? Your starting point of knowledge is very, very low, but if you go through the RP and you learn and you interact with stuff, you could potentially end up doing some very crazy shenanigans by the end of season 4.
Emily also asked if the Archivum was okay with vampires. The Archivum is aggressively neutral. They are neutral to all races, all countries, all backgrounds, all everything. So yes, the NPC I will be playing this season in the Archivum is a vampire. They're okay with vampires. And the Progenitor is a different guy. The Progenitor is 300 some odd years old at the very least. He's the first vampire. He turned into a vampire 328 years ago. Dracula turned into a vampire 10 years ago. They are different people. Caladran also loudly and aggressively hates Dracula. They think he's a piece of shit and like an imposter. So yeah, the people of the Progenitor's bloodline fucking hate his ass. They're two different people.
Yes, Dracula, in their words, is bitch made. Next question set. Vlur, this one's for you. How is mixed blood being handled for Mitts?
Mixed blood for Mitts along with werewolves and humans. We will have details that come out about that at a later date. All three of them will have the capability of getting mixed blood types, but there will likely be some kind of quests or unlock mechanism behind the type of mixed blood you are aiming for. You can expect a similar system across the board.
I'll take the next question. So the humans had it last season, but there was a way to obtain servants, mostly with coin. It will get a slight revamp, but that will be accessible to everyone this season. There will be a way to obtain servants, and how you flavor them will be up to you. Have we decided on the day-night ratio?
Day-night's gonna remain as it has been in the past,
What's
as
it?
far as I know.
Okay.
Which is a 20-day 40-night, I believe, or 30-30. I can't quite recall.
I think it's 2040.
Yeah.
I believe you're
2040.
correct.
Yeah, we will probably stick with 2040.
I proposed all day days, but no one
Merrick
took it.
has our next question.
I think Fenny's got that one.
Yeah. So yes, can we start as transcendent citizens, as in they do not aggro us, but others like Luminance do? So that will fall under the citizenship. So you'll get to pick your group, your little cluster, who you belong to, and yes, they'll be friendly to you. But if you attack them, they will defend themselves.
A very critical note, tacking onto that, is that being you are a citizen of Rustlock, the village. You are not a member of Transcendum's military or a member of Transcendum's research stuff, you are a Joe who lives in Rustlock. Just same with Brighthaven and with the two towns in Dunley. The citizenship system, you are on the level of being an average person. You have citizenship there, but you are not a members of the militia, the militarized Church of Luminance, or the Transcendum Company as a whole.
Okay,
Wiggler asks. Oh, go ahead, Tone.
I was going to take the next one. You can whitelist as a werewolf this season. However, if you wish to become a werewolf after the season starts, you will need to be bitten by an existing werewolf.
That does have to be another player or an NPC. You cannot mosey your way into Gracefall and say, Wilfred got me, I'm a werewolf now.
Correct.
Boss abilities for all with caveats will be available to all races. Races that have shapeshift restrictions, races, that's the big one. So like vampires get bat form. If you're not a vampire, you don't get bat form. Granted, our bat form is on the ground, not way up in the sky. So it's more akin to a faster way of traveling. So yes and no. And then it is said that the Venomblades came only recently to Vardoran. Were they in another land previously? Vler, would you like to clarify that since you wrote it?
That is unknown. If they were out and about in the world previously, they kept it down low. Cults generally aren't well liked by organized civilizations, and so they tended to keep away from others.
Can vampires be from Vardoran / have been turned to Vardoran? Does Caldran culture link heavily to those who are from Vardoran? Can a vampire be detached from Caldran to the point they know very little about it or is inescapable? Your vampire, should you choose to not want to be part of the Caldran culture, can know as much or as little about it as you want. 90% of the vampires are in Caldran, but that other 10% could be from wherever. Your sire could have been a risen vampire who bit you because he didn't know what the fuck was going on, and then all of a sudden you're sitting there like, whoa dog, what's up? We have a ton of vampire culture stuff for both Caladran and non-Caladran on the website, and Naku and I will be going into way more depth, probably yapping at you about vampires for 2 hours on Wednesday. Doctors don't need to take an oath. If you want to steal someone's liver, suffer the consequences in character.
Jonathan asks, there have been one or two probablys and maybes have occurred regarding vamps, vamp hunters, and yes, we've left a lot of things vague, in particular to how the world works, because we want to foster a FAFO environment. We have the answers. We're sitting on a whole mountain of them. Play around, ask questions, figure things out, and we'll be able to guide you in the right way and maybe even reward players for asking the right questions.
I will note that in particular to your example here, where you say, let's say I have a group of 10 Chads to all be bandits, could we actually get codified in the lore to be chill with Quincy, or is it okay to be like, yeah, that's totally true, without it admins, okay. If you want to RP as a group of bandits in Farbane, you are welcome to, but the bandits faction is not one that we are allowing the citizenship system to be attached to. So you cannot expect us to give you a codified faction ally tag for the Farbane bandits. If you want to be that you're a group of bandits, you kind of have it uneasy, but they don't really like you still, and so if you get too close, they aggro you, and you want to come up with an RP reason for that, you're more than welcome to say so, but do not expect us to provide mechanical benefits behind those kinds of more freestyle RP directions.
Daracine asks, how mechanical can our character be via augmentation / machines? Through RP input research, transcend relations, can you get special thingies? How advanced is the technology in Vardoran, Norris, the world? To my knowledge, and this may be subject to change because that isn't a topic we have discussed in a great amount of detail. Typically, we say if it's in game, it's good to go. So if you want to have a robot arm, it's a janky ass robot arm. There's not going to be any high tech automata like what the Arbiter was as of now. But that
No
is
Teen
a
Titans
great question.
cyborgs.
Yeah.
Victoria asks, why was the decision made to not have mortality contracts for vampires? Obviously, they're immortal with the other race options having integrated perma conditions. Why not add that to them? Based on descriptions of other races, they are the race that has the least amount of restrictions. Doesn't seem a reason not to play them other than the options. The big reason why is we've always used vampires as the vanilla experience of the game. If you just want to play the game and have that be your focus, not really have restrictions, not have anything super special either, vampires are for you. There's a lot of really neat things that other races can do that vampires just can't. Go ahead, Tony.
I'd also like to add there is not a single thing stopping you from self-imposing restrictions, limitations, or other perma conditions on yourself as a vampire. It's just we will not be enforcing them on, because some people, essentially vampires are introduction for people especially new to the space. If all of our races have a perma condition, some people may end up getting killed off without getting to tell their character's story through actions or not actions of their own, and that doesn't always feel good. So it's a great, usually a great race for people who are new to the space, as I think we'll actually have quite a few this season with so many of the other servers shutting down.
There's also a side note that in the design of the races, where we provide benefits to something like a human, where you don't have blood drain, you don't burn in the sun, you're immune to silver, you're immune to garlic, and there's mechanical benefits that are positives, we have to offset that a little bit because vampires are sort of the starting point because of how the way the game is coded. So when we look at the other races, it's a lack of downsides in a vampires because they also have a lack of upsides in a similar way that the other races have a counterbalance of downsides and upsides to balance the significantly different types of gameplay that they each provide.
Yeah, we don't want to have a objectively correct race to play for someone whose story doesn't have any basis in the race that they pick. So all the races are essentially side grades of each other.
X has a couple good questions. For the vampires must have some blood magic. Does that mean they must take the blood magic specialty? You
that
do
does
not have to. It just means that your vampire innately has to be able to use blood magic. It doesn't have to be your preferred school, but for lore reasons, which you may or may not find out depending on how hard you push, that is a requirement. How old of an organization are the Archivum? Did they just form 5 years ago, or did they exist before that? Naku.
The Archivum has existed for about exactly 5 years. The Archivum was founded by some of the Talam, and actually some of the founders of Etheria also founded the Archivum. So they have existed as an organization for roughly 5 years. But they're all over the place. They're recruiting like crazy. Anyone that's a nerd, they're like, come join us, come share information. We're the largest like group of scholars in the world. Psst, psst, psst. So yeah, they're only 5 years old, but they're fucking everywhere.
Last question from that set. I'm not that familiar with VRising lore in general, and IDK, if this is specific setting, would set it. Are we in a setting where vampires specifically have to drink human blood, or is it any blood? It is any blood. If you want to be a vampire who just gobbles up all the moose and deer and wolves and creatures and dogs and cows and pigs and shit, knock your socks off, my friend. We will not tell you what kind of blood you have to drink, just that you have to. Veru asks, how does druidic magic work, or did I miss the explanation?
We did not go over druidic magic in this specific thing. There is a write-up on both druidic magic and elemental magic on the website under their specialty sections. The information there should give you a concept on the ideas that those two magical schools are built on.
Ruby asks, what factions are you allowed to start as a citizen? Was it ever put all together in one place? Specifics, please. It is on the website. And there's a lot of them.
Real quick if we want.
Yeah, give us a quick 2-minute.
I can go quick 2 minute. So there is a section on the website for citizenship that describes the whole shenanigan. There are 3 locations you can be a citizen of. One is Brighthaven, one is Dunley, and one is Rustlock. Each of those have their own little card. The concept is that if you want to be a citizen of Brighthaven, then these are typically residents that are luminance aligned. Either you have lived in Brighthaven for some time, or you lived in Novosvet and have come up in, your citizenship down there has kind of pulled that up. Vampires, werewolves, and Talam cannot start as citizens of Brighthaven. The light magic that is very prolific in their culture allows them to detect those, and they don't like them. For Dunley, you still have a little bit of light magic, but not much. It's mostly humans in nature. Humans, werewolves, vampires, and myths, they can be Dunley. Talum are physically distinct enough that they can see a Talum and they know it's a Talam. Sorry, Talam. And so the Talam cannot be citizens of Dunley. Rustlock, because it's in Transcendum territory, Transcendum doesn't really give 2 shits about what race you are as long as you are one who contributes. So if you find yourself working your backstory into being a citizen of Rustlock or from Norris up north, you can organize yourself as being, I mine copper for them or blah 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 reason. Any race can join as a Rustlock citizen. And then the only interesting side case is that this isn't exactly a citizenship-esque thing, but if you request it and it matches your character lore, we will hand out faction ally tags for normal mundane animals, such as moose, deer, wolf, bear, etc. The Talam, by default, will receive the quote-unquote bear faction tag. So they will be allied and happy with wolves, bears, and a couple different types. I think pretty much stone golems for the most part.
Yep,
And other
stone golems,
mundane
iron
animals.
golems, copper.
Yeah. So Talam, because they can't really join Brighthaven and they can't join Dunley, they do get one by default. If a Talam, for example, wanted to be a citizen of Rustlock, they could choose that, but you do have to recognize you can only be allied with one faction at a time. So there's a choice to be made there. Myths are kind of a special case with the magical races because myths are able to pass as human. So they can pretty much join anyone under the same conditions humans can as long as they feign humanity. If Brighthaven or Dunley find out that they're myths, they probably won't like you very much.
A question for the Talam.
Yes.
I heard Talam were excluded from the mixed blood discussion. Is this tied to their ritual blood change? I might have misspoken earlier. They will gain access to mixed blood when everybody else gets access to mixed blood. It will still be tied to the ritual change, and they will still be restricted secondary blood type to the blood types they can have as their primary.
Wiggler has a clarification about their earlier question. By boss abilities, I mean similar to what players researched in previous seasons with custom spells that are boss attacks. Those will fall under the specialty functions. So the different specialties for the different magic schools will have different abilities that you can get. Is the entire map... Go ahead.
If it's something that we don't, so like if it's like a chaos spell, but it's not a part of the chaos specialty branch, there's probably a reason we didn't use it, either because it doesn't balance well, it's glitchy, or it doesn't have a cooldown or something, and something makes it so we can't use it. So you can always ask, but there's probably a very good reason why players don't have access to any particular spell.
Like a variant of the Harpy Dash that despawns you after you use it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Is the
because
entire map
that's
going to be
crazy.
open? Go ahead.
Nope.
Oh, okay.
No, sorry, I was just saying that was crazy. Continue.
Is the entire map going to be open day one because of citizenship system, or are we going to be locked to Farbane? You can explore the whole map.
In fact, individuals who, and I might have to flesh out the citizenship info on the site. I don't know if I have this here. People who take citizenship with Brighthaven, Dunley, or Rustlock will have their spawn changed. When you take your citizenship, you'll be teleported to the locations that match your citizenship, and you will start the game there. There will also be alternative. There will be alternative means of acquiring materials through a network of custom merchants to compensate.
Is the 4th generation limit on vampires a hard mechanic or a cultural thing? That is a hard mechanic. You cannot be any closer to the progenitor than 4 generations. So there are 3 vampires between you and them.
That's only if you're a part of the progenitor's line of bitten vampires. So the progenitor was the first vampire. He's bitten all of the bitten vampires. They somehow trace back to him. If you were turned by Joe Bob, the man who accidentally was trying to chase immortality and turned himself into a vampire as a terrible lab accident, and he has no tie to the progenitor because he turned himself in a terrible lab accident, you could be a 2nd generation vampire of that bloodline, but you are still a risen vampire because your origins do not trace back to the progenitor. So you cannot be 3rd or higher of the progenitor's bloodline, but if you're a risen vampire, that doesn't apply to you. You can be the origin of your own you turned yourself in a lab accident vampire if you want to. And yeah, there is no limit on how like low the generation could get. You can be a 50th generation vampire if you want to. It means that people are doing they're very insanely productive over the last 300 years. But you can hypothetically be as high up in the vampire generations as you want. And no, it does not apply to risen vampires. The generation limit is strictly for people that are bitten with an origin point of the progenitor. You can be your own origin point. You still have to follow the rules, though.
Now, I will add to the how low generations can get for those of you who like your complicated family trees. You can get someone higher in a higher generation than yourself, or like closer to Vampy Prime. You can get someone higher than yourself to bite like your biological child, whatever, and put them closer in the hierarchy. That you can do that.
The
Can't have biological children, but if you
know what I mean,
want
though,
your
yes.
lover to join your blood clan and you're like, okay, I'm a 7th generation vampire, I want to turn my lover. If I make them a 7th generation vampire, they're not going to have any social pull in Calderan. So you go to your sire or your sire, and you're like, hey, will you turn my lover so that they're a 5th generation vampire so they have more social status? So that sort of thing is absolutely possible.
It's
There's
a way you can advance your clan.
Mhm.
Okay. There was a mention that we might get to see the spells you'd be granted from Magic Specialty last meeting. Was it decided if we're getting a sneak peek? Valor, is that live on the website, or are we still finding
Not to a point that I'm comfortable showcasing it at the moment. There are a lot of spells. Each magical school specialty is going to give you 2 spells that you will be able to assign yourself per level, for a total of 6 spells picked from NPCs and bosses per magical specialty. In addition, a few of the profession specialties are also going to have abilities such as engineer, alchemy, and martial arts. It's a lot of abilities to showcase. They are not all configured and live as of yet. So providing a demo is beyond my capability, and there are a couple ability lists that we're still solidifying. I can collect some feedback over the next couple weeks, and if people are super paranoid about things and really want to know the specific spells they're going to get, we can approach that later.
It
Oscar,
should be ready by whitelisting, though, I believe.
Oh yeah, it'll be ready.
It will definitely be ready before you guys are able to write your whitelist. So go ahead, Potts, or whoever was going to answer Oscar's question.
Oscar asks, how would one RP to discover more about the inner works of magic and rituals? The joke answer is FAFO, fuck around and find out. The real answer is if you really don't have an idea of how you want to proceed something, open a ticket with us. Say, hey, this is something I'm interested in. What can I do to pursue it? And then we can go over with you, like, hey, well, what are some of your characters' like interests? What are some of their abilities? What venues do they have? And we'll work with you to find a way that you can explore and pursue what interests you to make your story yours.
Dreadthis asks, can our characters' vampiric origins deviate from the progenitor? Do we
that
have
got answered by the earlier question?
I believe it did. I just want to clarify. Most vampires come from the progenitor's bloodline. You can be risen through a different means, but you still have to follow the RP rules, restrictions, things like that we have set forth for vampires. That would be under the risen vampire category of the website. Merrick asks, is it possible for us to make cut items like resonators with our own recipes on a special workstation that we made through RPO ticket, or is that not possible this season?
I can say that things like that, such as resonators, copper wire, and other various little engineering vibed items that are primarily just for RP purposes, will be accessible through chat based custom crafting recipes in the engineering specialty.
Scroll Keeper asks, are magic restrictions for certain races like werewolves permanent? Like, say, the
Yes.
Holy Magic ban for vampires? Or can it change through studies? Fundamentally, the racial bans, or not bans, restrictions, are set for in-lore reasons that you guys will have to find out in character. They are not mutable. They are what they are for reasons that you guys will eventually find out.
Yeah, the without spoilers answer would be that the restrictions are in place because of what the race is. It's not only necessarily I don't know how to do it restriction. It's a is physically incapable of doing it, and why that is the case is find out when the season starts kind of vibe.
I will add the Talam are kind of innately incapable of casting magic other than Frost and Storm. But as mentioned on their like profile, if they put specialty points into other magic schools, then they can cast other magic schools. So
They can study.
mhm.
Merrick asks for a return to the automata question. Is it possible to even make organs into machines? Let's say a machine heart through heavy med and engineer RP. That's a tricky one for us to answer without having specifics. Giving someone a mechanical heart is a little outside the scope, I think, of what we would like. But if you have specific questions about things that you want to do, I would highly recommend that you open up an RPO ticket so we can address it as a case by case basis. Because I don't want to say blanket no to all mechanical augmentations, but they do need to be case by case.
Daracine's got the
Oh.
next question further down, but I think Naku answered it in chat. It's how old can the mortal races be, like max age? At least for humans and werewolves, who are by extension humans, around 90 is about right. I can't speak for the Talam or Myths.
Talam are about the same. Standard humans also got shifted and changed by magic about 5-ish years ago.
And then
Yeah.
Myths
Nope.
do not age.
and so,
It's on the website.
but
Myths
they've
in
only
particular, myths in particular are a little funky. They are absolutely well above adult age, to be clear. Just because you showed up in the world and you are here now as of 5 years ago does not mean you are a 5-year-old. That is not how that works.
just hold on,
most
let me interrupt you there.
myths-
You are not allowed to play any character below the adult legal age. Period. End of story.
Yeah, end of story. Hard cap. That being said, myths can be extremely old, but their concept of time is different. So if you were to walk up to a myth and ask how old you are, it wouldn't know how to respond. So there isn't really a solid answer to that for myths. They are old and intelligent beings.
For them is as foreign and strange as temperature and gravity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they when they come into the world, the concepts of physical perception are wild.
I'll take the next question, which is from
Okay.
Wick.
From Wick?
Yeah. Are we able to or allowed to start planning sigils, group stuff, or character backstories? We've never told you can't. We just told you to wait for lore. People have inevitably already started doing this. But if you were waiting, yes, you can absolutely. And then also, can we write question tickets? I assume you mean a ticket that is meant to answer all of your questions. The answer is also yes.
Yes, RPO tickets will be opening today for any focused questions that you guys need to ask for your shenanigans.
Do you need to be a MIT to know more about what they were before or / where they came from, or is it going to be answered in their general Q&A? Yes and no. The mysteries of the world will be unveiled in as much detail as the community is willing to put into it. If for some ungodly reason no one decides to look into where the hell the myths came from, then you guys don't get to know.
So suffice to
This
say
is
that
FAFO.
as far as being a myth is concerned, it's a case of the myths know that where they are now is not where they came from, but can't they can't really describe where they were in terms of where they are now, and they don't really know how they got here. It's kind of confusing even to them. So even the myths don't really fully understand where it is they came from compared to where they are now. Is kind of the vibe. There is confusion even within a myth, and maybe that's something that a myth, one of you, decide to explore and try to get details on.
And to be clear, if for whatever reason no one does pursue it, it's not the end of the world. Sometimes the mystery is what does make it charming. We have the answers, and they're there for you to pursue or pursue something that does interest you.
Is Dracula's lineage public knowledge? Yes, they're all dead. There is no descendant of Dracula that anyone knows of. Luminance wiped him and his touch and his physical sirelings, if he had any, from the face of the earth. Dreadthis asks a technical question about specialty abilities. Are you able to toggle your own custom abilities, like restoring a slot to a default one? Yes, you are.
That is a yes. We are putting that in the hands of the players. You will no longer need tickets to change your abilities around on your hotbar.
Emily has 2 questions. How many 3rd gen from the progenitor's lineage are there? Quite a few. The progenitor bit 5. Those 5 basically created the rest of the vampires that make up about the 90% of vampires in the world. Through biting more people, and then those people bite more people, so on and so forth. The big thing is, as we said before, we'll continue to beat into people. In Caladran specifically, biting a human and turning them into a vampire is something that is done intentionally for a purpose. A vampire is not in that country is not just going to bite some son of a farmer who can barely walk on his own, much less contribute anyway else. Because of how we have blood bonds structured and how important they are in that culture, it's an intentional decision. And how much does the Archivum care about morals when it comes to research?
I can answer that. So the Archivum was Talam founded, and the Talam are big believers in the cycle. They are aggressively neutral. If your morals are incredibly dubious, if not leaning towards evil, they would not like that, because that would implicate them in things that would make them not neutral. But if whatever you're doing is not inherently evil or easily pointed at and called evil, then they probably don't care. They are not transcendum. They are not just okay with everything as like a blanket. But, if what you're doing is for good and it is not super fucked up and awful, then they probably don't care.
I can take the next one. Oscar
right.
asks, when it comes to vampire origins, can the character itself be a human who hails from another region other than the one where most of the vampires hail from, and then have been bitten? The answer is yes. While 80 to 90% of the vampiric population lives in their island fortress city, that does not mean all of them are. There's that extra 10% is probably still out and about, littered around the world. If you wanted to write a backstory where you were bitten by a vampire somewhere else in the world and they have bloodline ties that go back to Caladran, you are welcome to do so.
We talk about Caladran because that is the home of vampirism, but you can be a vampire from Lacra. You can be a vampire in the Omen Plateau. You can be a vampire in Alinar. Vampires exist throughout the world. You can find a home that suits you.
I'll take
the very interesting thing about Caladran as well that really hasn't been talked about much, but it's all over the website, and I'm going to talk about a lot more on Wednesday. There are humans in Caladran, obviously, because they need to be able to eat They are very well taken care of, but they are blood bags. They are fed,
Cattle.
they are clothed, they are taken care of. They live incredibly extravagant lives for what they are. But Caldron also does go out and raid and take more humans to bring to their place.
I'll take the
Are
next
humans
one.
in Caladran like Wagyu?
Yes,
Uh,
they are exceptionally fine.
So, as for if there are going to be any lock plots like last season, or will all plots be up for grabs? I'm not sure at the full scope of the map at the moment, but at minimum, there will be 2 plots we will inevitably use. Some is just necessary. We have to have hearts to tie, like our dungeons to, or any of the free builds to. We will hopefully. I think we did it last season. We'll have at least an idea of which plots will be blocked and have that available for you to see before you start the season.
It will be available.
I can with confidence say that our current number is we will likely have 2 plots off in the middle of fucking random locations for our dungeons and world builds, and then we will have 2 plots for the Archivum that are tied to admin. We don't currently plan on going past that.
Yeah, we're not taking over a third of the map this season. Will a character with citizenship in Dunley be friendly to human mobs in Silverlight and vice versa?
Unfortunately, no.
No, we
No,
can't code
that is true.
Wait, what? I thought
It
you said
is?
you couldn't have more
Yeah,
than one
no.
faction per character.
You can't, but the in-game factions do still retain their in-game alliances. So if you are a Dunley citizen, and Dunley mobs are allied to Silverlight mobs, and so
I
therefore
see.
you will be as well.
There you go.
That's why caravans don't massacre the village.
True. For recruitment channel, yes, we'll get an out of character recruitment channel up shortly once I make all the categories for next season. So that should be out sometime this week.
Talam question, Asder.
Hey,
if I was,
a
a Talam, yep, that's
and I
fine.
had a elemental magic, what happens because the Talam are weak to fire? So that is actually a little bit of also a fuck around find out thing, similar to how vampires can use light magic. Very similar category. You have the ability to if you take the specialty, but you won't exactly understand fully why that can occur and why they have a weakness to fire, except for the obvious, oh, they have a head full of grass, it's lighting on fire.
Veru has 2 questions about werewolves. How would it work if we want to have a werewolf character with connections to Gracefall Village? Would that be a Dunley citizenship thing? Also, can werewolves only be made by being bitten?
Yes, werewolves can only be made by being bitten. That is a hard restriction. As far as having ties to Gracefall Village, it kind of depends on how you envision those ties being. That might be an RPO question in particular for later.
That is definitely an
werewolves have
RPO ticket.
werewolves have some faction fuckery when they turn into a werewolf form. So that's
Correct,
probably
it
an RPO
changes
ticket question.
factions.
Yeah.
Specifically, even if you whitelist as a werewolf, you have to have been bitten.
Correct.
You can whitelist as a werewolf, but you have to have been bitten.
Yep.
Next question's from Oscar.
Question: are player characters allowed to have come in contact with witness, etc., with outer beings or powerful outer beings in backstories? No. We do not have eldritch abominations, gods walking around on the earth. There are religions, which I believe will be fleshed out a little bit more in the future now that we have the baseline down. But no, there's not any super uber powerful warp gods out there for you to have met. You'd probably die if you did, if they even exist.
I once saw the king on parade. That's about as powerful as you'll have seen.
We are caught up.
Yeah,
Oh.
we are currently caught up. Pretty good.
Oh, Merrick.
Will there be a chance to affect the weather in game? Let's say making weather in Silverlight like in North Gloomrot, or even remove the lightning in North Gloomrot.
No. Due to modding limitations, I do not have the ability to change the weather to that effect. The weather is going to be anchored the way it is, unfortunately.
The day I can put lightning where. Oh.
Yeah. Maybe in Stunlock's next game.
How long ago did the Transcendum appear in Vardoran, Vlor? I believe it was 60 years ago-ish.
No. Transcendum showed up in Vardoran between 4 to 5 years ago. That is detailed in the Transcendum organization tab that you can read over on the website.
Do we
You might
have lore
the
for
links there.
castle magics and castle heart magics?
Oh boy.
Yes and no. Um,
I think
there
that's
is
find out I see.
there's a lot about, or there's some about castle magics and castle hearts and stuff in the vampire section and in Caladran. But the rest of it is kind of a find out in character.
Mhm.
Some of
The last one
them.
there, do custom spells go off your physical power number? Some do, some don't. It's a hard coding thing. I would recommend if you get access to a new spell, I'll try and document it in anything like that. But if you get access to a new spell, just do a quick test. You can test it by just removing your necklace real quick and slapping it back on. Most
Or-
use physical power. Yeah?
No, go ahead.
Most use physical power, but a few do actually use spell power.
Do myths change their appearance to match humans, or did they just pop into existence that way? They popped into existence that way. They don't know why. Based on the 3 magical schools you pick to compose your myth, it can be fun to have little attributes built into your character's design that reflect those magical schools. But no, they popped into existence. They found themselves here in the world with a physical human body, and they don't know why.
How will soul shards be treated this season? That is an excellent question. Currently, given that they are incredibly powerful magical artifacts, and our main plot driving group is very interested in magics and its origins, it is incredibly likely they will be used as plot devices. It will not be bountiful shards. That I think we all agree that that was horrible. And it's something that we don't want to touch again. So they will be used as plot devices. There is a very specific section in the rules for that purpose that if there's an NPC with a shard and they go down, you need to ask an admin before taking it. That is there for a reason. Evelyn asks, if a werewolf is a citizen of Dunley or Silverlight, will their faction change when they transform?
That's a weird question. I actually don't. I think the answer is unfortunately yes.
Yes.
Uh,
Unfortunately, the buff that comes with being a werewolf and the way that we handle that programmatically means that when you turn into werewolf form, you will be treated as a werewolf as if you were in um, Gracefall, which means any mobs that would aggro a werewolf are going to aggro a werewolf, and that will override any faction shenanigans that we do.
Keeper asks, braise be the fish? I like to braise my fish with a red wine.
Tasty. I do want to round back slightly to the shapeshift thing also with citizenship. Talam specifically as an example, but like druids and elemental getting access to additional shapeshifts. Your faction will change with those shapeshifts also. So like if you turn into a
Keep that
rock
in
puppy,
mind.
you will have that tag. So be aware of that.
Veru asks where the timeline is on the website.
It will be posted once it is ready. The full timeline is not complete yet as far as a visual. I'm hoping to have that ready for you guys in the next couple of days. Follow-up
answered
question
that.
from
I
okay.
got that in chat.
Beautiful.
1273.
Yep.
Please use the code blocks. It's kind of hard to pull text out.
Yes. Use
Visually.
code blocks.
We don't want to miss anyone.
It is 1273 AF.
What is AF?
Or
Find out in case.
after the phone. Novasvet, for those of you who are interested, is our world's equivalent of the Roman Empire ish. Ancient empire
Plus or
that
minus a
fell
Khazar.
and bred a lot of culture that's been gone. The vampires of Caladran use a different calendar, which is called, I think it's AP or PA, which
Pennsylvania.
is the date from which the first vampire originated. So it would be 328 AP.
Different epoch markers for different cultures.
The Noctum folks use a calendar based off of when Drac came to power. But Noctum folks are stinky and pretenders and heretics, so don't
Yeah.
listen to them.
Who would
We
ever
are
be
coming
Noctum?
up on the 2-hour mark of the meeting. We will keep the Q&A open for another 11 minutes, and then we will all hit the road. Yes, Maki, that is correct. The Archivum is the only joinable faction. Citizenship and faction joining are two different things. Faction denotes that we have constant NPC admin support. We do not have a large enough team to field all 8 FizzRept groups.
Now, that doesn't mean that there won't be pop-ups here and there every now and then, but they won't stay as people that you can interact with.
Exactly.
Correct. Even if you want to adopt a little Glorbo who made your heart melt, it probably is not going to happen. Not for the whole season. Maybe a few days, but not the whole season.
Vero asks, did you say werewolves can only use frost, storm, elemental, and druidic magic with no possibility of them training other schools? Yes, that is correct.
Merrick asks, will the horses return? Find out in character, my friend.
Mm-hmm. That's a huge find out in character.
Maybe you could make the horses. Oh my
Allegedly.
God.
And you asking if the horses return denotes that the horses ever left. So I'm a little bit insulted by that.
Wow.
What the heck is a Glorbo? It's the equivalent of 9.5 horses.
Yes. It is also typically when a little NPC shows up and people are like, I want to adopt that character, that little NPC that was only meant to be a one-off, and then we feel an obligation to keep returning as them. We're not going to be doing that anymore because it causes some issues. As much as fun as it can be, sometimes it requires or puts down some uncomfortable obligations to keep returning. Yes, thank you, Potts. Yes, yes, it will.
If you join the Archivum and are, say, a citizen of Brighthaven, would that potentially cause issues with citizenship if the view of the Archivum changes? No. The Archivum is aggressively neutral. If any of you remember how I ran the Academy during the last season, that aggressively neutral. They are neutral with all of the other various organizations. If you are a citizen with any of the other groups in the region, that will not impact your ability to interact with the Archivum.
How far can you go with your MedRP research? Can I build another hospital bigger, better, faster, stronger? You can go pretty far. I mean, we'll tell you when you hit the stopping point.
Yeah, you're welcome to do MedRP. Just recognize that doing medical RP and medical research, I highly advise using the doctor specialty. Technically speaking, I guess you could do some wacky magical dissection shenanigans to try to discern things in the body, but understanding of like the bodily function from a doctor and medical point of view is very much attributed to the doctoring specialty.
Will the Archivum be run by Vlur? Funnily enough, no.
No.
I don't believe we are currently planning on having like the leader of the Archivum show up, because why would the head Talam show up there?
They're busy doing other things.
Naku will be playing an NPC. I believe Naster will be. I know that
will.
Apples will be. I believe Art will be, and I will be an NPC who you guys will be able to send a lot of letters to, kind of like a secretary, Ezel type NPC. So I'm gonna be your little goopy, fun, happy-go-lucky helper guy who gets into a lot of trouble, but also help you do anything you want to do.
Mark
That's the
asked
Glorbo
if
you can adopt.
Mitt can be a doctor.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, you've only been here for 5 years, so maybe you had some catching up to do. Maybe you spent some time in some libraries in order to get to that point. But yes, Mits can absolutely be doctors if they so choose to be.
I'm picturing a Mitt locking themselves away for 3 years just reading medical history.
Yeah, pretty much. How far would the Archivum's research regarding magic have come to this point in history? Not very far. Magic is new. Magic is fun. It's exciting. It's scary. The world is all sorts of fucked up, and if you guys want to be Archivum members, you're coming to Vardoran to figure out why. Missed the part of the first meeting. Will there be NPC PCs?
I'll answer this.
No.
Not in the same fashion that we had them for the factions last season. They're, depending on what the admins running different plots want to do, there may be opportunities for EVs to play varying degree of persistency NPCs for plot things. Again, entirely up to admins who are running the plot. You may find something as a pop-up like what Frank did last season for bandits, for just a quick little 3 guys come up to rob you on the road, track them down in a day or two kind of thing. Or if an admin wants to run something similar to the werewolf thing last season. There are no full-time positions being filled. If it happens, event volunteers will be told and filled as needed.
Yeah, like I might recruit Sarah to be a vampire hunter to hunt down naughty vampires who ate Brighthaven for the 20th time for a week, you know?
Yeah.
Snow asks if... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I just want to clarify, there will not be contracted full-time player NPC PCs like we had for factions last season.
Snow asks if my sacrificial pawn is going to die horribly to move the plot. It's really hard to do that when I'm the one who kills people horribly. But I don't know. Maybe I'll make you guys cry in a happy way. Do Mitts have to have been in the world for 5 years? Or is that they can't have been longer than 5 years? That is to say, would it be possible for a Mitt to be popping the world for the first time at the moment the season starts?
Yes, that is fine. It's a maximum 5 years in the world for Mitts. If you want to have popped in at any point earlier than that, you are welcome to.
I'll answer the next question. Are we still allowed 1 event per player this season? I want to clarify, you are allowed 1 admin-assisted event per season, and this will also... Have we announced this, Nazar, yet, for dungeons, the frequency?
We have not actually talked about it at all. This would probably be a good time to
announce it
mention
now while we've got people's attention. Last season, poor Nazar ran dungeons like most of the week when Frank left, along with Grump, who has also since departed.
Along with me, who had also left by that point.
Some of you probably remember I ran a dungeon, then a player event, then a dungeon, then a dungeon. Some days it was a lot.
In order to combat that, we are unfortunately having to put in a limitation. You will be allowed to complete a dungeon per week on your character.
We'll get an actual explanation posted somewhere here on Discord about the exact how that is going to be formatted, but yeah.
Do different races have different amount of potential in some magic types? I know some don't have access to, but I'm just wondering how far one can advance in it. If you have access to a magic, humans and vampires can both use unholy. There's nothing saying that the best unholy mage is a human or a vampire. How far you want to go is up to you should you have access to that.
Restrictions are purely access, not capability.
I can also expand a bit flavorfully, like the Talam have a natural connection to the natural world, so like the druidic and elemental magics, but just because they have that connection doesn't necessarily mean they're better than someone else who's studied as long or longer than them, as an example.
Veru asks, when will RPO tickets be open again?
As soon as Tony wants to open up the ticket bot.
Did I not put the bot on?
I don't know if the bot's on or not, my friend.
I've been eyeballing RPO tickets this whole time. I was like, all right, when are they coming in?
Right. Yep.
Oh, we missed one. How far away is Vlur from Mod Godhood?
He's already there.
Oh, you're already there?
Okay.
He's already there.
I see.
Praise be the saint.
Everything that is modded, 98% of what's modded in our server is from Vlur.
Oh, wait. I know why the RPO thing's not up yet. Oops. Give me a second, because last season we had 12 RPO categories.
No,
and
Leo, that's heresy. I wanted I wanted the fancy bar at the bottom. I wanted my miscellaneous regions to be full width, and then Welrons came in last second, and it
There's-
threw me. Okay, you know, I middle fingered away. Get out of here.
So here's the thing. Apples is on vacation right now, and that is a placeholder for something that Apples is writing. That's the honest truth.
That's the honest truth. Yeah, I don't ever write it for what's supposed to go there. So for the time being, you know, it's we squint at Welrons for ruining the 2-column design.
We have less than 1 minute left. If you have a question, get it in. We will not be answering any questions after the top of the hour.
I will say, we will end the recording. I intend to idle here for another hour for questions specifically focused on specialties and citizenship. So if you have any specific questions on specialties and citizenship, I'm going to just do my first little Q&A random bullshit here. We can stop the recording. We'll do a proper dismissal, but I will idle here for another hour.
Man, that's
Probably
crazy.
hang out
The
with you, Flair.
tickets are suddenly working again.
Whoa.
Where is
It's
Ohio
crazy
on
they
the
were
map?
broken.
Actually, the funny thing is Incarnate is not big enough. I can't make a map big enough to encapsulate all of Ohio on
Yeah,
Incarnate.
it'd be the whole thing.
That's pretty
Um,
Brutal.
you can find Ohio on the other side of the Endless Sea.
Oh my god, you're so right.
For reasons they don't understand, you're so
Alright.
right.
I am
Oh my God.
officially ending the recording here. It is
Alright,
popping
Okay,
back
bye
up.
guys who are listening to this as the recording.
Bye.
Bye,
Hi,
YouTube.
recording.